For letting my parents arrive at an empty house after they blew their savings on my sister? My name is Natalie Hayes and I am 25 years old. For the past 6 months, I have been living in a small studio apartment assigned to me by my company in Phoenix, one of those places that gets the job done but does not feel welcoming. Everything is practical, white, and kind of cold. A bed, a table, a kitchenette that is barely enough to heat something up, and that is it. It looks nothing like the spacious 3-bedroom loft I inherited from my dad in the Arts District of Los Angeles. That place was a real home. My dad died in a plane crash just 1 year after I finished college. I still remember it perfectly. One day he was texting me about a work trip like it was nothing, and the next his name appeared on the news on the passenger list. I felt a blow to my chest, as if someone had turned me off from the inside. My dad always made sure I had stability. My parents got divorced when I was 13. It was not full of yelling or endless fights. It was mostly just sad. It ended and that was it. He went to live in his loft and my mom and I stayed in the house. I saw him on weekends. For a couple of years we got into a new rhythm, different but solid. Around the 2nd year after the divorce, my mom met Rick. Rick was not a movie monster. He did not come in yelling or breaking things. He was worse in another way, because it seemed his mere presence was enough to slowly take over the space that used to be mine. He was just there, sitting, giving his opinion, making decisions as if he had always belonged. It did not take long before my mom married him. Rick moved into the house. The following year, when I was turning 16, they had a son. My half-brother Dylan. And from then on, the most repeated phrase in my house became, "Natalie, can you give me a hand with Dylan for a bit? Your stepdad and I are going out." It was never "How was school?" or "How are you feeling?" It was just that. Errands. Favors. The new family that had to be supported. Then there was Nicole, Rick's daughter from his first marriage. She is about 10 years older than me. When my mom and Rick got together, Nicole was already married and had a baby. She came over often with her husband Jason and the kid, and my mom went out of her way for them as if they were guests of honor. There was a special smile, a sweet tone that I almost never heard directed at me. I was 17 when it really hit me that I had become something like a piece of furniture in my own house. It was at a family holiday party, one of those Christmas gatherings where everyone is doing gift exchanges and saying, "Let's catch up soon." Nicole arrived with Jason and the baby. I had just come back from high school, tired, and when I walked into my room, I saw it was no longer my room. My bed was not where it usually was. My things, my books, my clothes, everything was piled up in the small room my mom used as an office. And my bedroom, the one I had my whole life, had a crib set up and an open suitcase on my bedspread. My mom was in the hallway, avoiding looking me straight in the eye. "It is just for the holidays," she told me, with that "do not make a scene" voice. "Nicole needs the space for the crib." I nodded. I did not throw a fit. I did not cry right there. I just swallowed my anger and said, "Yes." But something shifted inside me, something that never settled back the same way. When I turned 18, I left for college. My dad paid for everything. My mom and Rick did not contribute a single dime. I almost never went back. I would go at most for my mom's birthday out of obligation. During vacations, my real home was my dad's loft, and my safe haven was my grandmother, Evelyn, his mom. My grandmother became my rock. She had a way of being with me that never made me feel like a burden. She listened to me without rushing. She gave me coffee and some pastries, and that calm that only some older people have, as if they had already seen it all and still left you room to feel. When my dad died, my grandmother and I grew closer. I moved full-time into the loft he left me. It was a spacious place with beautiful natural light, and a smell that said, "Someone who loved you lived here." I tried to rebuild a relationship with my mom. I visited her from time to time. I saw Dylan, who was growing up curious, restless, with bright eyes. But the reality check was always there. Every time Nicole came over with her family, my mom lit up with excitement. By then Nicole had 2 kids. And guess where they stayed? In my old room, as if my history there did not exist. 6 months ago, I was given a temporary assignment in Phoenix. It was a good opportunity for my career. A major project, the kind that helps you grow. Before I left, my mom offered to help me with my loft. "We can rent it out while you are gone," she told me one day at a coffee shop, with that little voice that meant she already had a plan. That way you get some extra money. No thank you, I replied firmly. I do not want strangers living there. My mom pressed her lips together, like when someone is holding back a retort. Then she nodded. All right. Then I will keep an eye on it. I still have the spare key you gave me last year. Just in case. I left for Phoenix, and life in the small company apartment became lonely but manageable. Work, fast food, calls with my grandmother. We talked every week. About everything and nothing. About the weather, what she had cooked, some light gossip from her neighborhood, how I was doing with the project. Until last Thursday late at night. That day my grandmother sounded different. Her voice had a tightness to it, as if it was hard for her to say what was coming next. Natalie, she told me. I am not one to gossip, but Mrs. Linda Thompson, a lady I play cards with, lives in your building. She mentioned something that left me unsettled. I felt a knot form in my stomach. What happened to my loft? There was a silence. And then my grandmother very slowly said, she says that Nicole and her family moved in there shortly after you left. That your mom and Rick helped them move their things up. A chill ran down my spine. That cannot be true, I said, even though deep down a part of me saw it coming. I am sorry, my girl, my grandmother said. I felt you needed to know. I hung up and immediately called my mom. I tried to make my voice sound light, as if nothing was wrong. Hi, Mom. Just calling to see how you are doing. Hey, is everything okay with my loft? Yes, she answered entirely too fast. Everything is fine. And you? How is work going? Good, I said. Listen, a friend from college needs a place to stay for a few days. I told her that maybe she could use my loft. She is going to stop by to get the key from you. At that moment her breathing became noticeable. A short silence but full of panic. Oh, Natalie, I do not think that is a good idea, she said. You always said you did not want strangers in there. Something could get damaged, and you are very, very careful with your things. Mom, I cut her off. My voice was no longer gentle. I already know that Nicole and her family are living in my loft. The silence was long. Right then it became crystal clear to me. Natalie, she finally blurted out with a tired sigh. Yes, it is true. But they had nowhere to go. Their landlord sold the building, and with how rent prices are. You did this behind my back, I interrupted her. You knew I did not want anyone in there. Nicole is not anyone, my mom snapped. She is family. She is Rick's daughter. She is not my family, I said, feeling my hand trembling as I held the phone. Do not be childish, Natalie. It is temporary. You are not even using the loft. I want them out today, I told her. And I want you to give the spare key to my grandmother. My mom's voice hardened. Nicole is going to stay as long as she needs to. You do not need it right now. It is my loft, I fired back. My dad left it to me. Enough, I have things to do, she said coldly and hung up on me. I called her again. She did not answer. I looked for Nicole's number. It went straight to voicemail. I paced around my small apartment in Phoenix like a caged animal. 6 months paying several $100s between maintenance and utilities for a place where I was not even living, only to find out that my own mother had moved her husband's family in there. I grabbed my phone and called my boss. Greg, it is Natalie. I need to ask to be transferred back to the Los Angeles office. It is a family emergency. Greg did not ask too many questions. I had already earned his trust. He told me he would look into it, and about an hour later he confirmed it. I am sending you back. Go fix it. And when you are ready, I will see you here. The flight back felt endless to me. With every passing minute my anger tightened. I kept rehearsing conversations in my head, and none of them ended well. I arrived in Los Angeles, grabbed my suitcase, and ordered an Uber straight to my grandmother's house in Pasadena. When she opened the door, her face lit up and then changed because she saw my expression. Natalie, I did not think you would come so fast. She pulled me into a hug. She smelled like coffee and that soft perfume she always wears. It calmed me down a bit, although the anger was still there, stuck in my throat. I could not stay there, I told her. I need to see what they did to my loft. First, I am making you some coffee, she insisted. You look exhausted. While she was in the kitchen, I let Greg know I was already in the city. Then I sat at my grandmother's table and watched her move efficiently, as if the world could not knock her down. Have you spoken to my mom since you told me? I asked her. My grandmother shook her head. No. Susan and I, ever since your dad passed, we never got along well again. But yesterday I swung by your building because I was worried, after what Mrs. Linda Thompson told me. I saw their car and I saw your car. My car, I said, almost choking on my coffee. The one you left in your mom's garage, she confirmed with a serious face. It was parked outside your building. They are using it. Right then I felt my stomach turn. My loft. My things. My car. Everything as if I did not exist. I stood up. I am going right now. I ordered an Uber and went to the building. It was an old remodeled building, the kind that used to be a warehouse or workshop, and now has lofts with exposed brick and large windows. I fell in love with the place the very first time my dad showed it to me. He told me, "You are going to be fine here." Now standing outside, I felt like a stranger. I went up to the third floor. I walked down the hallway to apartment 307, my loft. I took a deep breath and knocked loudly. Nothing. I knocked again, louder. I could swear I heard movement inside, like footsteps or something dragging. But they did not open the door. I took out my keys. I put the key in the lock. It did not turn. I tried again. Nothing. I froze. They had changed the lock. It cannot be, I said, mostly to myself, and I started knocking again. I know you are in there. This is my loft. I waited. Nothing. I walked out with anger rising in my throat and ordered another Uber. This time heading to my mom and Rick's house in Burbank. It was rush hour and the drive felt endless. There was heavy traffic on the 101 freeway, as if even the city was stretching my patience. The house looked the same as always. Trimmed lawn, neat hedges, the swing Rick built for Dylan in the backyard. Everything looked perfect on the outside, as if nothing questionable was brewing on the inside. I rang the doorbell harder than necessary. My mom opened the door. Her face went from surprise to something hardened when she saw me. Behind her, Rick appeared with his arms crossed. "Natalie," my mom said flatly, "what are you doing here?" That tone, as if I were an unwelcome guest, left me in shock for a second. What am I doing here? I repeated. I live in this city, and I live in a loft that you gave away without my permission. You should have stayed where you were, my mom replied. Everything was working out here. Working out for whom? I snapped at her. Rick took a step forward. Nicole and Jason need that place more than you do, he said, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. They have kids, Natalie. You are just one person. That does not make it their loft, I told him. It is mine. My dad left it to me. And you left it empty, my mom chimed in. Nicole lost her place. Did you want us to leave them on the street? You could have asked me, I replied. Or helped them find something else. Or had them stay here. Rick's face grew heavier. There is no space here. Besides, Nicole deserves that loft more than you do. She has a family to support. I felt my face burn. And my car, I said, remembering what my grandmother had told me. The one I left in your garage before I left. Rick shrugged. We gave it to Nicole. Her car broke down and she needed to get around with the kids. I turned to look at my mom. I searched for something. A hint of regret, a doubt, the slightest trace of shame. Nothing. Her face was completely shut. Your things from the loft are in the garage, she said, as if she were doing me a favor. You can take them right now. They are in the way. In the way, I repeated. My voice came out hollow. Like always. My mom tensed up a bit but said nothing. I am going to order a moving truck, I said, taking out my phone. I stood there in her driveway, refusing her half-hearted offer of come inside for a bit. I did not want to be there. I could not be there. When the moving truck arrived, I pointed the movers toward the garage. There were my things. Boxes carelessly stacked, my chair, my nightstand, items tied with rope, as if they had done a rushed clean-out just to clear the space. Where are we taking this, miss? The foreman asked me. I gave him my grandmother's address. While they were loading my things, Dylan arrived from school. He had his backpack on, his uniform a little crooked, and when he saw me, his face lit up. "Natalie," he ran toward me. But my mom grabbed him by the arm. "Go inside and do your homework," she told him. "Natalie is busy." Dylan's face fell. He looked at me as if asking a question with his eyes. Then he obeyed and went inside, turning to look at me one last time before disappearing. When they loaded the last box, I turned to my mom. "And what are you going to do when I get my loft back?" I asked her. "Because I am going to get it back." "Do not cause trouble, Natalie," she warned me quietly. "Nicole has nowhere to go right now." "That is not my problem," I replied. I got into the passenger seat of the moving truck. As we drove off, I saw my mom standing at the door, with that face that says nothing and says it all. At my grandmother's house, we unloaded everything into her garage. The move cost me a couple $100, and every box we took down hurt as if the place that was mine was being ripped away from me all over again. When the crew left, my grandmother wrapped her arm around my shoulders. "And now what?" she asked me softly. I looked at my boxes. My life packed in cardboard. The things my dad left me, the memories, all boxed up so others could make themselves comfortable. "I will figure it out tomorrow," I told her. "Right now I need to sleep." That night, lying in my grandmother's guest room, I made a decision. They were sure I was going to do what I always did. Swallow my anger, adapt, and stay quiet. But not this time. I woke up early. I took a shower. I had breakfast with my grandmother. And I sat down at my computer to look up information. Not to play lawyer, but to understand what I could do without getting myself into a bigger mess. Ownership, possession, unauthorized entry, vehicle use. My grandmother poured me some coffee. "What is the plan?" she asked me. "I am going to file a police report," I told her. "They moved into my loft without my permission, and they are using my car." My grandmother nodded, looking serious. I called to ask about the procedure, and they told me the right thing to do was to go to the police department to file the report. They also made one thing clear. A formal eviction takes time, but they could provide a civil standby to prevent fights, leave an official record, and facilitate a voluntary handover of the keys, if the people agreed to it. I grabbed my driver's license, digital copies of the loft's deed, and the car's paperwork. I gave my grandmother a kiss and left. At the police station, I was assisted by an officer whose last name was Daniels. She did not smile easily, but she had kind eyes. I explained everything to her. She took notes. "If the property is in your name and there is no rental agreement or authorization from you, it is documented as unauthorized occupancy," she told me, choosing her words carefully. "And about the car unauthorized use, we are going to put it on record." I showed her the documents. She reviewed them and cross-checked the information. "It is clear," she finally said. "We can escort you today to attest that you are the rightful owner, request the voluntary handover of the keys, and keep things from getting ugly. If they refuse, their refusal is recorded, and you continue the process through the appropriate legal channels." Sounds good. For the first time in days, I felt like I was not alone. "Today?" I asked. "Today," she confirmed. "Give me an hour to coordinate." That hour flew by between phone calls and bad vending machine coffee. I let my boss Greg know what was happening. I told him I was going to fix it and that I would be ready to return to work on Monday. Just as she promised, Officer Daniels came back with another colleague, Officer Harris. They told me we would meet outside my building. I ordered an Uber because my car was still in Nicole's hands. We met there and we rode the elevator up to the 3rd floor together. My heart was beating like crazy. Officer Daniels knocked firmly on the door of apartment 307. "Police. Please open the door." Long seconds passed. Movement was heard inside. Finally, a man's voice, Jason's, asked from behind the door. "What is going on?" "Open the door, please," Officer Harris said seriously. The door opened halfway. Jason peeked his head out. When he saw me, his eyes widened. "What is your problem, Natalie?" he snapped begrudgingly. "Open the door completely," Officer Daniels instructed. Jason opened the door. And there was Nicole in my living room, carrying a toddler with another one peeking out from behind her legs. My loft, my place, was completely full of their things. Toys all over the floor. couch that was not mine, boxes, backpacks, hanging clothes, and the walls, which used to be a soft gray, were now painted a bright yellow that burned my eyes. Natalie, Nicole said coldly, you could have let us know you were coming. Let you know I was entering my own loft? I replied. The one you moved into without my permission? Officer Daniels stepped forward. Ma'am, she said clearly, the owner is present and has proven ownership. We are here to bear witness and to request the voluntary handover of the property and the keys. This is being officially recorded. Nicole's face turned red. My mom gave us permission, she said, pointing at me as if I were the intruder. We had nowhere to go. We have kids. Officer Harris spoke calmly. We understand the situation, but the authorization must come from the owner. If you refuse to hand over the property, your refusal will be noted and the matter will proceed through legal channels. The most sensible thing to do is to avoid trouble and hand it over today. Jason clenched his jaw. This is ridiculous, he said. We have been here for months. We even did some repairs. Repairs that I did not ask for, I replied, looking at the yellow walls, and my living room turned into a daycare. Officer Daniels maintained her firm tone. Today we are requesting a voluntary handover. You can take your essentials now. For the rest, we can calmly coordinate the removal. But the property must be handed over today. Are we clear? Nicole opened her mouth, as if she could not believe it. And our things, she demanded. We are not leaving empty-handed. Take what is necessary, Officer Harris replied. Clothes, documents, basic items. For the rest, it will be placed on record and an agreement will be made. This is not about fighting, it is about restoring order. Nicole started to cry. The toddler she was holding grew restless. The other one clung to her leg. We have 2 kids, she said, her voice breaking as she looked at me. Where do you want me to go? How can you do this to your family? Right then something ignited inside me, but it was not blind rage. It was a harsh clarity. Family. I repeated. You were never my family, Nicole. You were the person my mom gave everything she took away from me. My room, her attention, and now my loft and my car. I have had enough. Nicole cried harder, as if her pride had been snuffed out. You are just as cold as your dad, she spat maliciously. My face froze. Do not dare talk about my dad, I said quietly, but so firmly that even Jason stood completely still for a second. Grab your things. And leave the keys to my car on the table. Jason took a deep breath like he was swallowing a fight. He put his hand on Nicole's shoulder. Enough, Nicole, he murmured. Let's go to your dad's. We will figure out what to do later. I stayed near the entrance while they packed in a hurry. Suitcases, clothes, toys, diapers. Nicole shot me glare after glare, full of anger between sobs. The officers stayed there, making sure no damage was done. About an hour later they were ready. Nicole walked past me without saying a word. The kids followed her, one half crying, the other quiet. Jason dropped a set of keys on the table with a sharp thud. We fixed a leak in your bathroom and changed a few things, he said bitterly, as if looking to have the last word. You're welcome. I did not answer him. Not because I was out of words, but because I did not want to give them even that. When they left, Officer Daniels asked me if I wanted to make the issue with the car a separate formal matter. I thought about it for a second. Put it on record, yes, I said. But I do not want this to escalate any further. I just want my life back. They gave me some documents to sign, confirming that a voluntary handover had taken place and that the authorities had witnessed the situation. They left. I closed the door alone and walked slowly through my loft, as if entering for the first time. I saw the ugly couch, things moved around, my kitchen in a mess, my workspace turned into a children's room. I went into the bathroom, and there I saw it. On the mirror, written in red lipstick, were 2 big words. Bad daughter. I just stood there looking at it, seeing my reflection behind it. If this had happened to me 6 months earlier, maybe I would have started crying right there. Maybe I would have felt guilty. But in that moment, what I felt was something cold and steady. I grabbed a paper towel, wet it, and started wiping away the lipstick. Slowly, without rushing. Like someone cleaning up a stain they no longer want in their life. When the mirror was clean, I looked out the living room window. Down below, I saw Jason loading suitcases into a car that was not mine. My car was parked nearby, and for the first time I saw it for what it was. Another piece of proof that they had crossed a serious line and broken my trust. I watched them drive away, and when they disappeared, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. The following days were a whirlwind. I called a locksmith and changed the locks. I notified the building management that only I could authorize entry, and that no information or access was to be given to anyone. I requested a deep cleaning. I arranged for movers to bring my things back from my grandmother's garage. It hurt to see my furniture out of place. My memories moved around like they meant nothing. The first thing I did was paint. That yellow was screaming at me. I took an entire day to bring the walls back to a soft gray, the very one I liked. I climbed a ladder, roller in hand, and felt like every stroke was taking back a little piece of me. My cell phone would not stop ringing. My mom called over and over again. Rick too. And then Nicole. I did not answer. I had nothing to say. I only answered my grandmother's calls. They are staying with your mom, she told me on one call. Susan called me furious. I hung up on her. I have no patience for that anymore. Thank you, I told her, with the roller still dripping paint. Really? Thank you. On the third day, while I was arranging books on the shelf, my cell phone rang again. It was my mom. I did not want to answer, but something in me, maybe to find closure, pressed the button. What do you want? I asked bluntly. How could you do that to your sister? She lashed out, with a high-pitched voice I had not heard from her in years. You left them on the street with kids. I took a deep breath. I put the book on the table. First of all, Nicole is not my sister. Second, I did not leave anyone on the street. They are with you, which is where they should have been from the beginning. But they cannot stay here for long, my mom said, and right then, for the first time, some real desperation slipped out. This house is not big enough for everyone. That is not my problem, I replied. You should have thought about that before giving away my loft without asking me. My mom clicked her tongue, as if I were the one who did not understand. You are selfish, she blurted out. Nicole needs that loft more than you do. I stayed quiet for a second, hoping she would stop there. She did not stop. Besides, she continued, lowering her voice a bit as if it were obvious, your grandmother is already old. It will not be long now. And when she is gone, you are going to inherit her house too. You can give your loft to Nicole. You have more than enough. I felt my throat tighten. Is that what this was about? I asked quietly. You think I have more than enough, so you get to decide how to hand out what is mine? Natalie, do not exaggerate, she said quickly. We are talking about family. No, Mom, I answered. We are talking about my property, the one my dad left to me. And whatever my grandmother does with her house is her business, not yours. There was a pause. And then my mom changed her tone, as if putting on a friendly mask. Look, Natalie, maybe we just caught each other at a bad time. Why do not you come over for dinner tonight? We can talk about it like adults. Dylan misses you. That pulled at me inside. Dylan. That boy who searched for me with his eyes when my mom pulled him away from me. That kid who was not to blame for anything. But I stood my ground. Talking was for before you guys took my loft and my car, I said, and immediately corrected myself to leave no doubts. Before you took my loft and my car. There is nothing left to talk about. My mom stayed quiet, and I felt that if I did not say it right then I was going to fall back into my usual role. I do not want you to call me anymore, I told her. And stay away from my loft. Natalie. It is over, Mom, I said, and it hurt, but I said it. Tell Dylan that I love him. That when he gets older, if he wants to look for me, I will be here. But you, Rick and Nicole, you are no longer my family. I hung up before she could reply. I blocked her number. I blocked Rick's. I blocked Nicole's and Jason's. Then I sat on my recovered couch in my clean living room and cried. Not for them. I cried for myself. For the years I spent trying to earn a place where they were never going to give me one. The next morning there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and was surprised. It was Greg, my boss. I opened the door. Good morning, he said, with that calm smile he always wears. I brought some paperwork for your office transfer, and to be honest, I had a meeting nearby. I wanted to stop by and see if you were okay. May I? Yes, I replied, still looking like I did not understand why he was there. I started some coffee. While it was brewing, Greg walked around the living room. Your place is very nice, he commented. Much better than the little room they gave you over there. A small laugh escaped me. Thanks. It was my dad's. We sat down with our coffee. And without planning to, I told him everything. The divorce. My mom's second marriage. My dad's death. The inheritance. Nicole. The hijacked loft. The car. The police report. The voluntary handover. The painting. Cutting them off. Greg listened without interrupting me. When I finished, he sat there thinking for a second. Well, he finally said. Are you ready to come back to work? Yes, I replied. I need to. I need a distraction. He nodded. Perfect. You start on Monday. There is a project that is a great fit for you. When he left, I called my grandmother. Come over for dinner tonight, I told her. I owe you a decent dinner. That night we ate in my dining room, which was much more organized by then. We talked and I told her about the phone call with my mom. I cut her off, I told her, with a pang of guilt stinging inside me. Sometimes I feel like that makes me a bad person. My grandmother squeezed my hand. It makes you a person with boundaries, she said. And that is something your mom never respected. Your dad would understand. I stared at my plate. It hurts because of Dylan, I admitted. He will grow up, my grandmother said. And he will understand. And if he does not understand, that will be his choice too. But you cannot carry the weight of everything your mom decided to do. Months went by. By the time fall arrived, it had been almost a year since I left for Phoenix, and several months since I got my loft back. I threw myself fully into my work. I got my loft just the way I wanted it, with no trace of them left. Every weekend I saw my grandmother. Sometimes we went out for pastries, sometimes just to be together. I found out through her that Nicole and her family, after being crammed with my mom and Rick for a few weeks, found an apartment to rent. I did not feel joy. I felt relief. Like when you close a door and the cold air finally stops coming in. One Saturday morning in early fall, I was having breakfast at my usual coffee shop, the one where they already know me and I do not need to explain anything. I was sitting with my coffee and a pastry, looking at my phone, when someone sat down across from me without asking for permission. I looked up. It was Dylan. He had his backpack slung over one shoulder, as if he had run there quickly from somewhere. His eyes looked nervous and brave at the same time. Hi, Natalie, he said carefully. I froze. Dylan, what are you doing here? How did you find me? He shrugged. Mom said once that you came here a lot. And I have been coming every Saturday. For like 3 weeks. I looked at him and my heart squeezed. Does your mom know you are here? He shook his head. She thinks I am at soccer practice. I was going to scold him, I swear. I was going to tell him it was not okay to lie. But the warmth in my chest from seeing him there, looking for me, won me over. You should not lie to her, I told him gently. But you said that when I was older I could look for you, he replied, adjusting his backpack. I just turned 10. That is older, isn't it? I could not help but laugh. Well, yes, I told him. I guess it is. I motioned to the waitress. Do you want some hot chocolate? Dylan nodded, relieved. We stayed right there. He told me about school, about his friends, about a teacher he liked, about a game they had won. He talked and talked, as if he had kept everything bottled up just to let it all out with me. And listening to him, I felt something inside me start to settle. I did not need my mom, or Rick, or Nicole. But maybe, just maybe, I could still be the big sister to that bright-eyed boy who, despite everything, had sought me out. When we stood up to leave, Dylan looked at me seriously. Can I come again next Saturday? I thought about it for a second. Not for him. For me, out of fear that something might break. But then I saw his face and my answer was clear. Yes, I told him. I will be here. At the same time. At the same table. Dylan smiled as if he had just been handed the world. He ran off to catch his bus, turning around once to look at me. I stood there for a moment, my coffee now cold, thinking about what family really is. Not the one you are stuck with out of obligation. Not the one that demands from you without caring for you. The one you choose. The one you build. Mine might be small. My grandmother Evelyn, Dylan, and me. But it was real. And with that, for the first time in a long time, I had enough. Comment. This story really stayed with me, and I hope it touched you as much as it did me. Setting healthy boundaries is one of the most important acts of self-respect, and you deserve to protect your peace without feeling guilty about it. Sometimes choosing yourself is the most responsible choice you can make. Healing begins when we stop carrying the emotional weight of other people's decisions. Remember that true family is about mutual respect, not one-sided obligation. Be kind to yourself first, and that kindness will naturally flow to the right people. Letting go of what no longer serves you opens the door to real peace. I hope this encourages you to value your own worth and stand up for it gently but firmly. Take care of your heart, and know that building a life of dignity and peace is always worth it. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.